Perhaps there is no better example of the idea that history is controlled by evil people than America's seeming paranoia of the countries of Central and South America, who they seem convinced are about to destroy their way of life. Ever since the Cuban Revolution ended in 1959, the might of the CIA has been focused on one man, Fidel Castro.
The Cuban government claims that there were more than 600 attempts on the life of Fidel Castro. More than 600.
We now know for a fact that Operation Mongoose, as those assassination attempts on Castro were known, was sanctioned by President Kennedy in 1961 and remained secret until 1975. Proposed plots included implanting his cigars with high explosives. More outlandishly, impregnating his wetsuit with deadly bacteria. And even lacing his shoes with thallium salts, which would cause his hair and beard to fall out, which the CIA hoped would cause him to lose his mystique in the eyes of the Cuban people. Unsurprisingly, none of the supposed 600 CIA attempts on Castro's life succeeded. But many think that the CIA has been more successful in killing other Latin American leaders using an incredible weapon, cancer pants. On the 8th of March 2013, tens of thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets to mourn the death of one of the CIA's alleged victims.
Hugo Chavez died of a very virulent form of cancer. It struck his pelvic area and then worked its way eventually through the rest of his body.
But could Chavez's terminal cancer really be the work of CIA operatives? It's claimed Chavez's friend Fidel Castro believed the agency had such a capability, and, according to historian William Blum, had even warned Chavez the USA would target him with an untraceable agent.
He said, Hugo, watch out. They'll give you a tiny pinprick, which could be anybody who comes close to Chavez using a pinprick, which to inject him with some kind of chemical. That would be so easy to obscure.
By the 1990s, Chavez had taken over from Fidel Castro as the USA's ultimate bogeyman.
Well, in the United States, he was a widely hated figure, especially on the right, because he was seen as a lot like Fidel Castro and a left-wing Latin American strongman who was very anti-United States. Since there's this evidence that the CIA did try, and obviously failed, to kill Castro, it lends credibility to the people who support Chavez to the notion that the CIA tried to kill Chavez, or actually succeeded in this case.
During his 14 years in power, Hugo Chavez enraged the United States by nationalizing many of the US oil interests in the country. In 2006, he addressed the United Nations, openly accusing the American president, George Bush, of being the devil.
El señor presidente de los Estados Unidos, a quien yo llamo el diablo.
Chavez very purposely and consciously made himself enemy number one of the U.S., the international enemy number one. You could say he was asking for it. More so than any other leader of the many, many foreign leaders whom the U.S. has attempted to assassinate. There wasn't one who came even close to Chavez in asking for it.
According to Wayne Masden, the plot began in 2010, a year before Chavez announced he was suffering from cancer.
In 2010, the Secretary of State, who was Hillary Clinton, sent out a message to U.S. embassies, consulates, and missions to, among other things, collect DNA on foreign leaders. Now, DNA means a biological sample. You can get it from a hair, from a toothbrush, from a drinking glass.
Thanks to leaks from the State Department, it's known that targets for DNA profiling included most of the ambassadors at the United Nations, as well as many African leaders.
One of the possible reasons for that was to create DNA designer diseases, because if you know what somebody's DNA is, you know what their weaknesses are, you know about their immune system of their own bodies. So you're going to create a cancer weapon, potentially, that will attack the weak areas of this targeted individual's body.
The claim is that the State Department also targeted Chavez, and by knowing his DNA, the CIA was then able to develop a weapon that would cause him to develop a virulent form of cancer. But how was the weapon delivered?
Obviously, there are various methods you could use to deliver a toxin or a poison to a target. And there have been suggestions that perhaps President Chavez's underpants were somehow laced with some sort of cancer pathogen that caused a tumor.
If the killer underpants theory is correct, then it explains why the cancer that killed Hugo Chavez began in his groin. But Wayne Masden is convinced that Hugo Chavez was not the only victim of this deadly fashion.
In the case of Hugo Chavez, he may have been one in a series of Latin American leaders who had been targeted by a cancer weapon. Cancer strikes many people, all ages, all nationalities, and we know that. But the mere fact that about the same time that Hugo Chavez developed his symptoms, we had two presidents of Brazil. Former President Lula, who was very close to Chavez, he developed cancer. His successor, Dilma Rousseff, also developed cancer.
In all, Wayne claims that 7 Latin American presidents developed cancer at around the same time as President Chavez. Not surprisingly, the idea that this cluster of cancers is evidence of a CIA plot is not accepted by many